And there are so many reasons why everybody is talking about that show. It's called 13 Reasons Why.
People are questioning whether it glamorizes teen suicide, what kind of messaging it sends to young viewers. Please welcome relationship expert Natasha Sharma to the show. So Natasha, a lot is being made of this one television show. What can you tell us about the effect that it's going to have on younger kids?
It's tough to say. I think that depends on the individual viewer, right? Every person takes what they, take something from a show or whatever they're watching based on who they are, their personal experiences, and what their, what their mindset is. One of the things about this show is that it does seem to suggest that the premise is that this person, the girl, is sending a message. There's a sort of an activism fantasy behind her suicide, in that she believes she can almost punish or make a change, by instigating change through her suicide.
So that's the thing. Some people are saying this is glamorizing suicide because there's this sense of vindication after you've passed, and you will show all those bullies who's boss, and you get the power back after you're gone, and that this will in turn perhaps lead to some copycat suicides. What do you say to that?
I'm not sure I ever agreed that there's nothing glamorous about this, and for anyone who's seen the show, especially towards the end, it's very graphic. I don't think there's anything glamorous about it, but I think it's the fantasy, right? It's the idea that perhaps in this person's suicide they're sending some kind of a message, and they're sort of punishing those people. I don't think there's any way to know why somebody has actually taken their own life. There have been multiple studies to show that there's a correlation at times between exposure to suicide and reading it or seeing it in the media. But again, it's very difficult to be conclusive about whether there's a direct impact from watching this and actually someone deciding to take their own life.
Now, there's a lot of people saying, it's this particular show, but this information's readily available.
Yeah.
Is it ever a good idea? And a lot of this is not going to be a popular question, but I think in this case, a lot of times when people deal with serious issues like this, the tendency is to just ignore it, right? Is it ever good not to talk about it?
I don't think so. I think, but you want to let this kind of thing happen organically. So it is a graphic and violent show, but that isn't anything new. We have graphic and violent movies. I think it's about parents and children and teens regulating what they're watching, making sure that young viewers aren't watching anything that would be, if they're particularly vulnerable or emotionally intense, perhaps they don't want. I have a client in my practice who said, I know about the show. He's a teenager. He's going through a bit of a tough time, and he said, I've decided not to watch this because I'm kind of not in the best place. I'll watch it later. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. That's very insightful. So I think we need to give teens more credit than the show suggests, because they seem to portray them as demons. Yeah, and I don't think that that's true.
But if you tell teenagers, as you mentioned, not to watch it, it's that forbidden fruit, they're going to want to do it even more. So what's the appropriate age? You mentioned mental state should be strong if they're watching it, and know your child, but what age is appropriate then to start and have this discussion and watch a show like this?
In this time, in this day and age, I don't think that we can suggest an age, but I don't think we can control it, even less so because we're in the digital world and people can watch things much more easily, and especially if they're banned. What's the quickest way to make a teen do something you don't want to do? Tell them not to do it. It's called reactance in psychology. So, banning it isn't a good thing, but if it happens to fall into their lives organically, if they choose to watch it or if they see it online, then open up a conversation about it, avoiding talk about it, especially if they want to. Not a good idea.
One thing of note, Halton District School Board has issued an advisory on this show, and they're just telling teachers, listen, don't use this as a teaching tool. Don't encourage people to go home, watch the show, and then come back and we'll talk about it the next day. That's one of those things that they would like their teachers, and there was a school in Edmonton that did the same thing, but they're not saying not to talk about it. So we're going to have a link to all the distress centers in your area. If you need more information, just go to breakfasttelevision.ca, sorry, bttoronto.ca, and you'll find all the information there, and we're going to send it up to Mel in the newsroom.
Thank you.